pipsqueak over here now. We woke up yesterday morning to pictures of Harry bursting through the VIP area, minus the security, of course.
Front page of the Telegraph has got Harry's back home. Picture of Harry looking a little bit...
Prince Harry stepped off that plane at Heathrow expecting something. Anger, perhaps. Curiosity, maybe. Even hatred would have been acceptable. But when he looked around that arrival's gate, searching for any sign of the country that once screamed his name, he found the one thing he never prepared for. Absolutely nothing.
He'll have protection. He'll have people looking after him, not only his own people, but they will do it. They would.
No crowds pressed against barriers, no photographers jostled for position, just airport staff avoiding eye contact and the hollow echo of his own footsteps on cold terminal floors. Diana's son had come home to discover he'd become a ghost. This wasn't supposed to happen to Harry. He was the spare who became the star, the rebel prince who could stumble drunk out of nightclubs and still be beloved by morning. For 30 years, Harry owned Britain's heart through sheer charisma. Every scandal made him more relatable. Every mistake made him more human. He was their beautiful disaster, their royal wild child, proof that even palaces couldn't tame certain spirits.
Prince Harry, he says that his conscience, if I can say that word, Prince Harry says that his conscience is clear after spending years, of course, rubbishing.
But power in Britain operates through unspoken rules older than democracy itself. You can rebel against the crown. You can criticize the institution. You can even leave. What you cannot do is monetize your exit while claiming victimhood. Harry didn't just cross that line. He built a Netflix series on the other side of it. The palace understood something Harry didn't. In the attention economy, the nuclear option isn't destroying someone. It's making them irrelevant. They didn't need to fight back against his accusations. They just needed to wait for Britain to stop caring. And Britain, with its peculiar talent for collective indifference, delivered the execution with surgical precision.
He won't speak to me, but it would be nice to reconcile.
4 months after telling the BBC that...
The turning point came 4 months earlier when palace sources quietly mentioned Harry would return for a charity event. No fanfare, no official announcement, just a whisper that the prodigal prince was testing the waters. In previous years, this would have triggered media hysteria. Camera crews would have staked out airports. Fans would have planned vigils. Instead, the story landed with a thud. Major newspapers buried it beneath weather updates and baking show controversies. The BBC gave it 12 seconds. Even the tabloids, who once tracked Harry's every breath, treated it like administrative news.
Just to finish, I think the British people's opinion is dead set about Meghan Markle. I think it's more dead set than he thinks about him as well. I think he thinks that people will forgive him. I'm not sure.
The message was coordinated without coordination. Britain had collectively decided Harry was yesterday's news. What made this devastating wasn't malice, but mathematics. Media outlets track engagement religiously. Harry's stories weren't generating clicks anymore. The public had exhausted their capacity for Sussex drama. He'd become what every celebrity fears most: boring.
That's it. Let's talk about, the only man who's potentially less popular in the United Kingdom.
When Harry hired his security detail for the London visit, he prepared for the wrong war. Black SUVs with tinted windows, professional bodyguards scanning for threats, protection from the crowds that never came. The sidewalks remained empty, not from police cordons, but from public apathy. Even the tourists walked past without recognition. Inside the charity venue, the humiliation deepened through 1,000 small cuts. Organizers had prepared for a crowd. They got a sparse room of polite attendees checking their phones. The other speakers kept their distance, delivering shortened remarks and avoiding eye contact. One presenter left the stage without the customary handshake. Another turned their back during the group photo. Harry stood at the podium facing an audience that clapped with the enthusiasm of people waiting for a bus. His prepared remarks about service and duty fell flat. The room's energy wasn't hostile. Hostility requires emotion. This was worse. This was courtesy extended to a stranger who'd wandered into the wrong event. British culture perfected this form of destruction centuries ago. Not the guillotine's spectacle or the mob's fury, but the slow suffocation of being treated as insignificant. Every polite smile was a dagger. Every tepid round of applause was an execution. After his speech, Harry lingered by the tea station, holding a paper cup with trembling hands. He waited for someone, anyone, to approach, to argue, to condemn, even to insult. Anything but this suffocating politeness. Staffers later described him as a man drowning in air, desperate for any reaction that would confirm he still mattered enough to provoke emotion. The photo that destroyed him wasn't dramatic. Just Harry alone in a London hotel lobby at 2 a.m., caught by a single photographer who almost didn't bother taking it. He's slumped in an armchair staring at nothing, still wearing the same suit from the charity event 12 hours earlier. The image spread not because it was scandalous, but because it was pathetic. When palace sources confirmed that no family members had contacted him during his visit, the cruelty became clear. This wasn't oversight, it was orchestrated absence. Charles didn't refuse to see him. He simply had other commitments. William wasn't avoiding him. He was busy with his children. Even Eugenie, once his closest ally, was conveniently traveling. Harry's phone call to Meghan that night reportedly erupted into their worst fight yet. She wasn't sympathetic, she was furious. In her view, he'd walked into an obvious trap. He'd shown weakness by returning. He'd made them both look desperate. While he sobbed about being ignored, she raged about optics and brand damage. Sources say Harry hung up mid-conversation and threw his phone against the hotel wall. Then he sat in that overpriced suite, surrounded by luxury that meant nothing, understanding finally that he'd lost something money couldn't buy back: relevance. The next morning, he ordered breakfast and didn't eat it. He drew the curtains and sat in darkness. He skipped his second charity appearance without notice. The organizers called repeatedly. He never answered. They eventually continued without him, and nobody in the audience asked where he was. Britain's message was delivered without a single harsh word. No palace statements, no leaked recordings, no dramatic confrontations. Just the collective decision of 67 million people that Harry no longer warranted their attention. The same country that once tracked his every haircut had deleted him from their consciousness as smoothly as clearing a browser history. The tabloids that built empires on Harry's scandals now found his name decrease their sales. Editors discovered that Prince George's school plays generated more interest than Harry's existential crisis. The algorithm had spoken. Harry was bad for business. What destroyed Harry wasn't the absence of love, but the absence of hate. Hatred would have meant he still mattered enough to despise. This indifference was worse than any insult. He'd become what every former celebrity becomes: a Wikipedia page that rarely gets updated. Back in California, Meghan's reaction revealed the strategic disaster. Their entire brand depended on being important enough to rebel against. Without the palace as their foil, they were just another wealthy couple with a Netflix deal nobody watched. The victim narrative requires an oppressor. Being ignored destroyed the whole framework. Harry had gambled everything on the belief that blood and history guaranteed permanent relevance, that his DNA alone ensured Britain would always care. He discovered instead that relevance is a resource that depletes with overuse. Every interview, every revelation, every complaint had spent down his account until nothing remained. The implications extend beyond one prince's humiliation. Harry's erasure demonstrated that modern monarchy found its ultimate weapon: strategic irrelevance. They don't need to destroy critics anymore. They just need to outlast public interest. Future royal rebels will study Harry's downfall as a masterclass in what not to do. You can leave the institution, but you can't monetize your exit while expecting welcome back. You can criticize the crown, but you can't make criticism your career and expect royal privilege to remain. The palace's response created a new template. Don't engage with accusations. Don't provide oxygen to controversy. Just continue with duty, while the rebels exhaust themselves shouting into an increasingly empty room. Time and tradition will do the rest. Young royals now understand the equation. Relevance inside the institution is guaranteed but constrained. Relevance outside requires constant performance that eventually exhausts both performer and audience. Harry thought he could have both. He ended with neither. Media organizations learned their own lesson. The Sussex story had a natural life cycle that they'd artificially extended past public interest. The audience had moved on while they were still publishing retrospectives. The market had delivered its verdict. Royal drama has a shelf life. The universal truth is brutal but essential. In our culture, you can survive being hated. You cannot survive being boring. The public's attention is not a right but a resource that requires careful management. Spend it recklessly and you'll find yourself performing to an empty theater. For anyone navigating public life, Harry's humiliation offers crucial wisdom. Never mistake past relevance for permanent relevance. Never assume your story remains interesting simply because you're still telling it. Never confuse the politeness of strangers with genuine interest. The cruelest revelation is that irrelevance is often self-inflicted. Harry made himself ignorable by making himself predictable. Every interview followed the same pattern. Every revelation was a variation on the same theme. He became a one-note performance that audiences tired of hearing. When Harry flew back to California, he left behind more than just Britain. He left behind the last pretense that he mattered to the institution he'd spent his life defining himself against. The palace didn't defeat him. The public didn't destroy him. He simply ceased to exist in any meaningful way. That's why that last photo, Harry alone in Heathrow, walking toward a gate nobody was watching, became his epitaph. Not a prince in exile, but something worse. Just another middle-aged man with expensive luggage and nowhere that felt like home.